you. Trevor?
I just want to come back on that. Can't disagree with the fact a lot of staff don't have high levels of sickness. You can see it. But if you then look at it's about 40%, 60%, looking at that 4-day limit.
Yep.
Appendix 1 is showing the average, so it allows for the staff to bring sickness levels. Crudely, in Blackburn, which is the worst performing on this table, we lose staff for 12 weeks of the year on either sickness or annual leave.
Yes.
If you then adjust that for the 40%, assuming Blackburn reflects the good 40%, we must have half of the staff having 15, 16 weeks a year away from the job. So I don't think we should, and I know what he's saying about staff do work very hard, of course they do, but we have a core of staff who are hardly working almost.
And the evidence, and I agree with that, the evidence though of what we have been doing is that staff with that level of sickness record are ultimately destined either to retire on the grounds of ill health if that's what's appropriate, or to be dismissed because they are unable to fulfil their contract. And we've been through the numbers here of the numbers of staff who've been through that process, and that's how it's being tackled. So that's when I say it's about being firm where we need to be, but also fair to staff who've got a good record.
Okay, thank you. Let's push on then. We have two more items in the performance section of the agenda. CRB checks, which I think will be very quick, and major programme reports, when we were going to have a more specific look at the health and symptom checkers. But we will need to move quite fast, I think. Roger, CRB checks.
As of last Friday, we're now down to 37 people who haven't submitted their forms. That's largely because in the invitation to the disciplinary meeting that all those people have had, they have the opportunity to bring their forms along in lieu of the disciplinary meeting. So we are getting towards the finishing line on that.
Good, thank you. And we'll close it up. Okay, health and symptom checkers.
You asked for a report on the progress that's been made against the original timescales, and you can see from the back page, which shows the original programme in blue against the revised programme, which is in red. So, yes, there's.
Oh, sorry. I thought you were looking at the graph, Nick.
No,
so
I'm looking at the original.
Sorry.
So it shows that there has been slippage of the order of 3 months from the original case. In terms of the most up-to-date position, we have 23 of the 42 symptom checkers currently live. There are a further 19, for those that are smart with the arithmetic, that are in various stages of completion. I'd like just to go back to, and the original intention was that all of those would be complete by Christmas. The reality is that we have had to divert our resources to revise and update the colds and flu symptom checker, which is now being used. I think you gave the figures earlier on, Renette, that is now being used extensively to reflect clinical changes that needed to be reflected in the content, and a similar issue in diarrhea and vomiting, which has meant that we've had a slippage of about 2 to 3 weeks in those 19 that were due to be completed by Christmas. So those are going to come on in mid part of January. Overall, therefore, we've seen a programme that has not delivered as promptly as we would have liked. Interestingly, the volume predictions, and this may say more about our predictions than anything else, are being substantially exceeded. And that where we relaunched the Health and Symptom Checker platform and had new content coming in, during the course of the year. Of course, we've concentrated on getting the highest volume symptom checkers completed first. It's actually had a substantial effect on the increasing the volume of people who, and these figures, to be accurate, are those that commence using, so the ones that push the start button on a health and symptom checker, as opposed to necessarily all those who get to the end of it.
Okay, thank you. I'd like to make a couple of comments on this. Looking at the Gantt chart, it did strike me that those two blue lines in the centre did represent the triumph of hope over experience. We were late starting. We thought we could do it all in half the time. Oh, we couldn't. And that does raise a question for me about project management skills, because it's not a story that speaks of very sophisticated project planning and management, to be honest. It may be that picture that I've described doesn't represent the reality, but that's the, with other things going on that I'm not aware of, but that's certainly the story that seems to come out of that chart. The second thing, which I think is potentially a small thing, is I looked at them, some of the symptom checkers, and I still feel somehow that we are adopting the kind of language which, in some of them, that I feel slightly uncomfortable about. And I still think that we're moving towards a world in which we are much more providing advice for people so they can make well-informed decisions about their health, and it's a partnership and people know more about their health than we do. And so saying to people, please answer all of the questions carefully and please remember that, doesn't feel to me to be the kind of language we really want to be ideally speaking to our patients in. So, small thing, and I'd just like to make my third point, we come back to that, which is that clearly when people use the online tools, one of the outcomes is call us. So they deal with a lot of demand, they also potentially generate demand. And given that we are moving towards a future in which these tools make an increasingly important and substantive contribution to the health service and to helping people manage their own health, I wondered whether we are in a position to be able to analyse the proportion of calls that come either way and continually refine the tools so that we're able to manage that risk profile and give increasing proportion of people the kinds of advice that they need so they don't have to have further consultation. So are we looking at the people who get an advice to call us out of the tool and analysing the acuity and whether we feel those really did need to speak to us, and then in a sort of learning loop refining the tool, because that's what we really need to do in order to develop these tools further so they add more value. So there were three things there, Nick. Can I orchestrate the answers?
Can I orchestrate the answers? So I'll pick up the points about project management. Brian, in the ceiling, if you're able to pick up the points made about content. I'm saying that because I know that independently you've taken a look at the content, and I think the board would be interested to hear your views. And then either Renette or Ruth on picking up, or in fact Trish, as they're indicating to me, in terms of analysing the click to callbacks and that. So your first point was about project management. I think we've got some good project management skills around. I think my take on this is that we could certainly improve those, but actually what you see here is a lack of control over the resources that are vital for that project. Not that people were unrealistic about what was needed, but having identified what was needed, found that it got taken away and used for something else. And therefore, it's actually our control mechanisms, it's the pouring of the quart into the pint pot, having to have a shifting set of prioritisation of the use of some key individuals who are contributing and driving this activity. And I think that's the issue that we've got to grapple with, rather than just project management, because I think although we could do better, and again Liz is very helpfully getting that into focus for us, I think it's more about control and priorities.
Okay.
Second point was about language and content, really. And Brian, do you want to share your views? Are you still there, Brian?
Looks like we may have lost him.
We may have lost Brian.
Okay.
Trish, do you want to pick up on that?
Yeah, we have worked closely with our customers regarding the language that we use. We've had patient engagement regarding language, but I do take the point and will take that further to and work closely with Brian to address those issues. The content does reflect the content of the clinical software we use, where we engage with our external stakeholders, our clinicians, ensure it reflects our telephone service and addresses the NICE guidelines. I'll let Brian continue.
That's fine. Thank you, Brian. You're back with us, so that's good. Trish was just speaking, and then I think Renette was going to say something. So just finish that off.
Yeah,
again.
I would just like to add the final point, please. We have used on the online version what's called an AIT, which was the initial assessment tool, and we have learnt the lessons from the initial assessment tool and made the amendment to what is now our newly uploaded health and symptom checkers. So where we had the data coming in from our patients where they felt they didn't need a click for callback and could have concluded with self-care by giving them the information online, we've addressed those issues. So our newly uploaded software and health and symptom checkers will address those issues going forward. Thank you.
Thank you. Renette?
In terms of absolute statistics, Chair, on the click to callback, so our forecast of the proportion of calls that would require a click to callback, and the target we set ourselves was less than 16% of uses would end up with a click to callback. Sounds like Brian's crying. The true figure that we're getting is just over 4%. Of calls are ending up with a click to callback, so we're doing better than what we expected. What we're also doing is analysing the calls that do get a click to callback to find out what were the main symptoms that were causing that. And to give you an example that we have from the flu one, then we found that it was coloured phlegm that was the thing that was causing the majority of calls to have to be click to callback. Sorry,
Thank you for that.
Yeah, sorry, I'm using all of the horrible medical language this week, and I'm not a clinician. So that is something that we've got under constant review. The other thing that we have just undertaken is a piece of work in order to improve the starting off point for the symptoms checkers, because at the moment they're isolated units, as it were, and that doesn't make sense to patients. And so there has been a piece of work which we have been doing in partnership with an agency that we commissioned last year, to look at a card sorting exercise as to what makes most sense to our users, and we've used our members and also our PPI users, and we've done a card sorting exercise online, which is actually the biggest participation in a card sorting exercise that this organisation has ever done. So we've had a great deal of fantastic input from our members in getting us to a much better place about the usability and the language also that we use in the symptoms checkers from direct patient feedback. So we know we're not there yet. I think your points are well made, and we've got plans for taking that forward.
That's great, Renette. I mean, it's a very strong story you're telling. It's very helpful. Thank you. I don't think we need Brian to embellish that, to be honest. It's very clear. So I've got long queue here. I'm going to sort of randomly go Tim, Louisa, Tim, Ruth. Oh, okay. So, excellent.
You bought the vase.
Tim, Ruth, then.
Okay. The maths will be suspect here, but looking at chart 1.4, it looks like we're getting 3 times as many users as predicted, but the predicted line was based on all the symptom checkers being in place.
Yeah.
So if we factor that blue line for the symptom checkers that we have delivered, which is about half of them or something.
Yeah.
But the high volume ones.
Yeah. Yes.
Yeah.
Thank you.
But I think this line says more about our ability to predict than what's happened.
I'm saying if we had delivered them all, where would that blue line have been? And have we designed the system, particularly the technology capacity, to meet that?
Yes.
Okay. Do we have the capacity?
Yes.
Good answer, thank you.